I have a sibling in faith and a colleague in Rochester, New York, the Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan, minister at First Unitarian. Anytime I am in Rochester, I have an open invitation to stay with her. Now, I'm not all that special because Reverend Sherry and her spouse, Elizabeth, have graciously opened their house to many colleagues, friends, and family members in the past 3 years. During my many days there, I have done what you would think many dozens and hundreds have done. I took a shower. I quickly noticed that the drain was clogged. It turned into a bower or a shaft, combination of bath and shower. For the most part, it felt unsanitary. And I said nothing. Eventually, the water would slowly drain down during the day, and no one would know. And because Reverend Sherry and her spouse never used that guest bathroom for 3 years, they didn't know it was clogged. Until recently, when Reverend Sherry's parents came and said, "We don't want to take a shower." Why not? Because it clogs. Well, Sherry got out her snake and unclogged the bathtub. And when I went there this weekend, I took a wonderful shower, not standing in water. We want to be nice. We don't want to cause conflict. We don't want to seem ungracious. So we end up festering in our own dirt and germs and soap scum. If we can't trust our friends and colleagues with the honesty of a clogged drain, what can we trust them with? I'm sure that there are unpleasant but beneficial things that we are not saying to people we care about. There have probably been numerous occasions when we have not spoken to family, friends, beloved members of this congregation, colleagues, or fellow activists. It takes courage to have these conversations. In May of 2016, I came here for my week of candidacy. I led worship twice, and so I first met many of you. It all culminated on the second Sunday with a vote to call me for that very packed congregational meeting. I was led out of the church, and Ulrika, baby miles, and I went across the street to the park. The signal to come back was when the church bell rings once, that means the vote is complete. And when it rings again, that means I was called. Or something like that. I don't remember the exact details. Well, what I remember is the feeling when happened when the bell rang 6 times. What did those extra 4 rings mean? As it turned out, I was unanimously called to be your settled minister here. And it was one of the most important votes of my life. And we have been a great fit, haven't we? But I must say, I was a little surprised about something. Not the bells. A Unitarian Universalist church where its members vote 100% on the same thing? I've never heard of such a thing. Isn't there always at least one nonconformist among us? In many ways, I believe we are a healthy congregation. We respect our elected leaders, and I feel appreciated as your minister. We respect boundaries, and we are considerate of each other. Or another way to read this is that we are conflict averse. It is not in our congregation's culture for someone to stick out too much. Or maybe that is a wider North Country thing. I remember when I first came here, Carol Zimmerman, our DRE, told me You know that there's this whole 7 degrees of separation thing? Up here, it's 1 degree of separation. We don't want to say what's really on our minds because word may travel. We don't want to burn bridges with people that we will be forced to interact with. Now, I've seen folks who have moved here from other places, such as bigger cities, such as, oh, say, the city of New York. They tend to struggle a bit. They say their opinions out loud and clear. They have a more direct style. My hypothesis is that UU churches across the country skip over and sidestep conflict altogether, even the ones in the city of New York. And I'll be the first one to admit, I don't come to church to engage in conflict. None of us do. But we are in the business of liberation. And when liberating ourselves and our own communities, we will likely become in conflict. At some point in your life, we are going to feel like someone is out to get us. Someone is going to do something that is going to eat at us. And when this happens, I think it's wise to ask ourselves, is this my issue or their issue? If it is not their issue, if it is not your issue and it's theirs, chances are you need to have a courageous conversation. I imagine you have someone in your life right now. Maybe it's someone in your family, someone you work with, a neighbor, where a courageous conversation would be appropriate. Years ago, I learned from the former chaplain at St. Lawrence University, the Reverend Kathleen Buckley, about a Facebook post from an employee at the university. They were personally bad-mouthing me and the congregation. Their post said something like, Reverend Galasinski and the UU Church of Canton only care about Black people. They don't care about the poor in our community. Reverend Kathleen implored me to directly confront the person, and I didn't want to. But she encouraged me and helped me rehearse what I should say. So I left a message requesting a meeting with this person, and a courageous conversation is always an in-person meeting. Too much gets lost in email and phone calls and such. I can't say the meeting went great, but I got what I wanted. I identified my intention ahead of time with Reverend Buckley so that I knew exactly what I was looking for. I made a concrete request. Please take down those posts. And he did. I wasn't looking for an apology. I wasn't looking to make a new friend. I wanted him to simply take down those posts, and he did. The moment you sense or feel discomfort toward another person, chances are it's a chance for a courageous conversation. Rehearse your intention, your ask, your expectation. The person may not apologize. The person may not want to get into a conversation with you. Then it's on them. And there is some emotional relief in knowing you tried. I'm sure we've all had a close friend or a colleague say some questionable things to us, and we start adding things up and convinced they turned on you. Sometimes that's not always the case. After weeks of thinking about it, you finally meet with that person, you lay out your grievances and you say, I can see that you've turned on me. And they might say, no, that's not really what happened. That was not my intention at all. A sense of relief may come over you, and perhaps a more deepened connection and relationship with that person as well. Beyond being honest is being courageous. I think if we are honest upfront and not reacting, but responding, we will help ourselves, our loved ones, and our communities. If we practice courageous conversations, we can have the mental and moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger. In fact, in writing this sermon, I was kind of doing some reflection, and at a collegial gathering, at numerous collegial gatherings, a gay colleague was hitting on me numerous times. At first, I thought it was sort of flattering that someone was hitting on me. After reflecting on this sermon, I know I need to talk to this person. Having courageous conversations with your family, perhaps then in a wider community like us, our church, it can spread out. This can prepare us to have courageous conversations with people who are diametrically opposed to us. Courageous conversations are more than just one-offs. They are an ongoing practice. The friend who is in recovery, who starts using again, that might be time for a courageous conversation. I recommend, though, a time of quiet and silence before those courageous conversations, and having full knowledge that you won't get it perfectly right, and knowing that silence can be toxic. We won't grow if we are not totally honest. It is inevitable. Someone will spread disinformation about us. Someone will criticize our work. A loved one will hit us in a place that just hurts so bad. I invite you to courageously converse. In preparation, peacefulness is the only way. Be conscious of what you are feeling. If your partner is not helping around the house like you would like them to, don't get passive aggressive. Instead, take time out, have a meeting and ask, these are the practical ways, these are the things that I need from you. Direct is nice. We have courageous conversations because together we have a shared faith to live within a healthy community that values the worth and dignity of every person. We value ourselves and each other when we are lovingly honest and peacefully direct. It could come to the point when anytime we feel discomfort, we can reflect, notice our reactions, and then peacefully respond. I'm not there yet, but it is a practice. Perhaps as a way to practice, we can get together with our close friends and say, hey, if I say or do things that make you feel uncomfortable, please say something. Hold me to a higher calling. We can start these conversations with the folks we want to have long-term relationships with, and then take it out from there to our families, to our churches, to where we work, and to just envision a world where every group we are part of has courageous conversations. Slowly, slowly, we can change the world with our love. This congregation is not all sweet chocolate, red roses, and Facebook post-worthy photos. Communal life will involve conflict, and from this can come unplugged drains of joy and cleaner emotional living. We can work together to liberate ourselves, and I must emphasize, this is beyond important to have courageous conversations, though they may be difficult and hard. I recently saw a video from a few decades ago of Toni Morrison, the Black Pulitzer and Nobel Prize winning author, was being interviewed by a white journalist. The white journalist asked why she doesn't incorporate more white lives in her writing. Barely miffed, not missing a beat, Morrison calmly responded with grace, "You cannot understand how powerfully racist that question is. You would never ask a white author why they didn't write about Black people, would you? In that moment, Morrison kept her dignity, kept her respect, owned her own feelings, and directly expressed her own truth. Courageous, this is an example of a courageous conversation. So when we feel impacted, check in with ourselves. Choose to respond and not react. No matter how small or large of an impact, ground your response in our faith of liberation for all. A wider and deeper vision of love and respect. Even in a culture of conflict aversion, we can converse courageously. So may it be, and amen.